Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I have a very special guest with me, and I'm going to do my best to say it right. But I have Michael Pereira. I hope I'm saying it right. Anyways, Michael, I'm so glad that you could join us. We have a very important conversation we're going to have. And, a lot of times we talk about health issues that affect a person physically. Sometimes we deal with health issues that affect a person emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and sometimes it's all of the above. Sometimes a health issue affects the family, affects everybody involved. And we're going to be talking about one of those topics today here with Michael. It seems that in the last maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, there's becoming more and more of an understanding of a term that seems to change its name a lot. Um, and, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, the term autism sort of popped up and we became aware of a condition that affects a lot of people in a lot of ways. And then it got referred to as a spectrum disorder. And then this term neurodivergent comes up, and all of these terms that describe a thing. And Michael, maybe you can help us to understand this thing that we call the autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. Very excited. In my case, what we call autism impacted our family, I would say 3 years and a half ago, almost four, with our son Christian, who is 6 now. He's going to be 7 next month. And as you mentioned, it's been a hot topic, I would say, for a lot of people, a lot of institutions lately. Um, I would say when I was being raised 40 years ago, it wasn't that talked about. Maybe it's talked about now because there's new technology. Maybe that's why there's people getting diagnosis easier, I would say maybe.
Mhm.
Or there's so many theories that right now I don't know how we would put it into just one. But what I can say is that it's for us it's been a blessing in the sense that we've been able to I would say as a family being able to get tighter, the divorce rates when we talk about special needs apparently are compared to the just neurotypical family are like I heard the other day like 80%. So if 50% now is the divorce rate, for example, in the neurotypical, apparently with special needs it goes up to 80%. And in our case, obviously we it put us to against the wall to say, okay, is this going to break us or is it going to keep us closer as a family? And for us, when I say blessing, that's where I would say it brought us closer. It brought us more, I would say, openness in the sense to be adaptable, to be able to adapt to these type of behaviors that we need to constantly be correcting. Flexible to understand that progress is day to day. It's
Right.
not just, we don't look for perfection. We just look for progress and be able to be as supportive as possible.
So, this is one of these things that you have a newborn, and you bring the baby home and the doctor says, yeah, your baby's healthy and everything's good. And was this your first child?
We have two, but Christian was our first, and he's the one that's diagnosed.
So you're going through with your first child, and you don't
Yeah,
have any other previous experience of what this is like. and,
correct.
and that makes it even more challenging because you're always looking for markers. You're always looking
Oh
for, is,
yeah.
is my kid normal? Is my kid, learning fast enough? Is he growing fast enough? Is he healthy? Is he tall enough, big enough, whatever?
Yeah, yeah. Plus, I would say there's a, which I assume it happens to a lot of parents, the denial phase, right? Like, okay, no, this cannot be happening, or no,
Right,
it's just something temporary, and that denial phase affects a lot of, I would say, areas such as your ego as
right,
a father, right? Because you thought that or your child was going to be a certain way, your family's going to be, you're going to live the American dream,
right.
house and have a corporate job and so forth. And life obviously throws you a curveball, but that phase of denial can also be, I would say, it's essential to identify when you're in denial.
Absolutely.
Because you know it. You know when you're in denial, deep down, you know that maybe there's an ego there or there's something that's not letting you move forward.
Somewhere inside, you're asking a question that you're not getting the answer for, and
Correct.
and you're throwing out some kind of a easy
Yeah.
deflection of what it could be, but inside that, maybe that's not where we're at.
Yeah.
And
Plus for at least for me, and I'm talking just from a personal uh perception, is for me, I noticed that denial is something that really, really, from my point of view, is it's also selfish in some ways
yeah,
because I'm only thinking about what I think, what I
right,
feel, and I'm
right,
not thinking about, hey, as the more I'm in denial, the more the outcome is going to be, it's going to be worse for a Christian in this sense because he's not going to get any diagnosis, he's not going to get any early intervention if
right.
he needs it. Because I've seen families that just that denial phase can go for years, right?
Yeah. No, it's spot on. And you think about it as a parent, you have two points of view. You have the point of view that's right, which is take care of your kid, and then you have the point of view that's human,
Yeah,
that is fraught with all of the ego and the humanity issues that we all have. There's no getting away from it. We are human beings. We have feelings of inadequacy. We have feelings of frustration. We have feelings of our expectations not being met or whatever. Life is just full of all of these you know
yeah,
disappointments and shakeups and unexpected twists and turns. But I think when you get back to the point of being a parent with some disabilities that might be considered to be more acute or more dramatic. In some ways it's almost easier because you can't get away from it. If your child has a physical abnormality or something that has to be dealt with, well, then there's no excuses for it, right? You deal with
yeah,
what you deal with.
yeah,
In this case, it's not so cut and dry. There isn't lines that say, well, they did this thing, I have this dot on my skin, so I have to take this medicine for it. It's not like that at all. It's more of behaviors and nuances and little things that maybe
yeah.
only a parent might notice.
Yeah, and there's no like one size fits all.
Right.
Each child is unique, each family is unique, each pair even within the family, each parent has his own set of, you know, thoughts around
Hmm.
the behavior.
Correct.
Um, but it's true. It's true, right? And it's something that I think that these type of conversations are very necessary to just be open and just see what's out there. Again, there's no one size fits all. I've heard of cases that and even in our case, Christian, he's 7, he's gonna be 7 next month. His energy levels are very high. He's highly functional.
Hmm.
He started talking a year and a half ago. Not in conversational way, but more on the sense that he's speaking very short sentences or a couple words. So that for us, that's amazing because it's progress. But also, I've seen cases that there's a mix between autism and ADHD. I've seen other cases that there are families that have a child with Down syndrome and autism.
Mhm.
Every child, every family is unique in its way, and I think that just being adaptable, being flexible enough to understand that this is your situation, not situation, but this is your role, and this is what you need to do. Right?
Well, I think that's one of the most important points to bring up here. You know, one of the reasons of this podcast is so that people that have situations that involve their health shows them a way to look for answers. And what you described is applicable to everybody and everything. It's crazy because, like, if you listen to doctors or if you listen to, the media, you would think that, oh, well, there's this flu out there. Everybody needs to do this one thing and they'll all be okay. But nothing's further from the truth. And when it comes to any ailment or disease or disability or abnormality, anything that you want to say that might be different from what we would call normal, the answers are as unique as each of these people.
Yeah.
And I deal with a lot of people that are going through cancer. I'm currently going through a battle with cancer, and it's such a unique experience. Everybody's experience is different. There isn't two people that have the same.
No.
And it's the same with the experience of having a special needs child. Um, and frankly, all children are special needs. And I think
Yeah.
that's the most important thing that we should focus on, is that the differences are probably not anywhere near as many as the similarities. We
Mhm.
have more in common than we are different. And I think that's important to remember because we all have things that we're really good at and things that we're really lousy at. We all have things that we're prone to do well or prone to not do well. Um, and at one point we start giving names to things.
Yeah.
But it's kind of arbitrary though,
Mhm.
at one point, somebody with the right amount of blood sugar in their veins is a normal person, and then at one point they become a diabetic. Well,
Yeah.
we've established these numbers or places where things are considered to be different if they go over or under a certain mark. When
Yeah.
it comes to the autism spectrum, though, it's even more challenging because the physical outward signs can be there. There are behaviors that are
Mhm.
um, indicative of somebody that's dealing with this, but you also, like you just mentioned, there could be numerous things happening at
Um,
once, and that just changes everything. Like that makes a clear diagnosis almost impossible.
yeah. Yeah. But also, you know, I would say any recommendation, if I will, I would just say that parents in this case, in this situation, the true therapy would, for example, something that I noticed along the years is that the true therapy is at home, right?
Hmm.
And I think that applies in any situation, not necessarily if you have kids or not, but what you do in your actions, your reactions, your daily habits, that's what truly determines, I would say, where you're going. Because, for example, if the RBT, the behavioral therapist, is trying, for example, trying to take away the tablets from Christian, for example, they're trying to take away that type of, which in some case could be addictive, but it's trying to take away the tablet. And as soon as the therapist finalizes the therapy, I come in the home and I give him a tablet. I'm not reinforcing that strategy that they're trying to do, because obviously they're taking away the tablet in one portion of the day, but then I
Right.
come at home and I give him the tablet because I don't want to deal with the behavior. I don't want to, and
Right.
I truly believe that parents have the true power in changing all this. And I think it's being present. That's why I left the corporate world to
Mhm.
be present at home, to be understand really what's Christian's strength, his weakness, even my strength, my weakness.
Sure.
Because at the same time, I'm getting to know myself throughout all this journey. My wife the same. And it's just being accountable, being able to take ownership of your family and understanding that the true therapy begins. I don't want to say begins, but the true therapy is at home.
Absolutely. And it's funny as if you think about it, it actually does apply to every kind of issue. Your behavior at home affects everything, and
Everything.
in your diet, your sleep habits, your stress management, every element that affects your health
Yeah.
is also being affected by that. And when you talk about your home life, I mean the dynamic of your home life, I think, is maybe one of the most important factors in I don't know, a measure of well-being.
Hmm.
If you have a happy home life, you can endure any kind of obstacle. If you don't have a happy home life, it doesn't matter how good you have it, you're going to be miserable. So I think that focusing on the things that we can change, which is our relationships and how we interact, um,
Yeah.
is critical. And like you say, it doesn't matter what kind of obstacle it is. It could be a lack of money. It could be,
Hmm.
problems with housing. It could be, mental issues.
Yeah.
It could be any physical issue. Uh, so you are in a situation where now you're getting past the denial. You're saying, look, we got a unique situation here that's going to require some unique actions, and you came to a place where you decided you're not going to work your job anymore. That's a pretty big move. Like that doesn't happen for most people
Yeah.
at all, much less, an easy decision. So tell me, how did you get to a place where you're like, this isn't happening to, I need to make this my life?
Yeah. Yeah. No, well, it was a transition at the end of the day. It wasn't from one moment to another. In my case, long story short, when everything started, I would say after Christian's first year, we started seeing a lot of symptoms,
Hmm.
and then again, denial. Plus, at the same time, something that I do mention that to every parent is that, as a side note, that to watch out who you're listening to,
Hmm.
because in our case, a lot of family members would say, "Hey, don't worry, you were the same," or the same thing they would mention it to my wife. "Hey, don't worry, you were the same, and look at how good you came out."
Right,
And you're like, okay, so imagine being in denial, but plus getting that advice. That's dangerous because it procrastinates any early intervention, right? Because you're not
right,
doing anything because you're okay. So they're validating my denial. Okay, so perfect. Let's not do anything. Let's wait. And
right.
that is dangerous, right? For us, um, after a year, we started noticing some symptoms. Obviously, even though we were always present, we had again the denial phase. COVID came by. I was able to stay here, so I didn't travel. I traveled like 80% of the time, like for 10 years, so was never
Oh,
home.
okay.
So when COVID came by, that I was able to stay home. Actually, that's where I would say I started to get to know my wife
Oh,
because I stay home. I was she met me and I was traveling already. So
right.
that's where I was really able to see the dynamics at home, and a lot of symptoms reduced. I would say maybe because all the attention was to Christian. Maybe I'm a little bit stricter than my wife, so maybe he followed more instructions, so there was more order. But after COVID released, that started to travel with that same intensity at that time, a lot of symptoms came back.
Oh, okay.
And again, we don't know why, but even though throughout COVID, he still had those symptoms, but not that pronounced, I would say.
Uh,
But other behaviors came and from hitting his head against the wall, or even with a more force, or tippy-toeing, or a lot of stuff happened, and we knew we needed to get him that address. We got it. He got the diagnosis. But throughout that time, I also tried to look for other employers to see if I can do the same, travel less, and went to a couple startups. Going to a startup. You think you're going for one role, but you obviously do all three because it's a startup. Like any new company, you're wearing different hats.
sure.
So came to a point that it got even more complicated. So I just and again throughout that time, a lot of things happened, and I started looking for my own financial advisor or planner because I started questioning myself,
Right.
questioning life. Hey, if I pass away, what would happen? If my wife passes away, what would happen? Her pregnancy was tough too, so that's why we asked ourselves this, and everybody just wanted to sell us something or
Right.
recruit us, and became very frustrating because it was more transactional, and I wasn't looking for something just transactional. I wanted somebody who can educate me around this topic around, for example, guardianship, um, special needs trust, power of attorneys,
Mhm.
all this stuff that even though that person might not have known, but at least direct me towards somebody that knew, like an attorney, estate planning attorney or something,
Right.
because this is I would say this is a conversation that involves several parties. Like for
Right.
example, if we're talking about life insurance, or we're talking about any type of, and that's going into, for example, the beneficiary is a special needs trust.
Huh?
Not by itself, you require an attorney, right?
Right.
So it requires like an A team, like the same A team you have for therapy, that you have the BCBA, the RBT, the occupation, and everybody talks to each other, and even the teacher with the IEP. That same team, you should have it from a financial perspective. You should have a good insurance planner, a good attorney, a good CPA or accountant. If you're doing any type of investments, have a investment manager, or, wealth manager. Have that A team to help you think outside the box, because if you're always in survival mode, you're not going to have time to think. So, long story short, that happened to me. It was very frustrating. Nobody really knew much about the topic, so I just decided to part ways from the corporate world. At that moment, my head was not in the right place. I wasn't there, so decided to create a blog called the Autism Voyage,
Okay.
to talk about all questions I would say any parent would ask themselves. Like that was the type of site I was trying to look for.
Right.
At 2 a.m., 3 a.m. when everybody was sleeping, I was worried.
Right.
That's the type of blog that I was looking, and it talks about swimming, music therapy. Is ABA only for autism? It talks about several topics that doesn't have to do with anything with my services, but at the end of the day, it's a site, it's an educational site. And when creating the blog, the main purpose was to educate the community, try to be like a centralized hub, but
Hmm.
also provide services around insurance planning, which that's what I do, to be
Okay.
able to cater to families around this topic. And mind you, Joe, there's no secret product, there's no secret sauce. What you
Right.
see in social media sometimes it's not necessarily true.
Right.
Um, a lot of things in social media, it's just a hook to bring you
Right.
in, but
100%.
there's nothing, there's no secret product, there's nothing. At the end of the day, what we do is what you can acquire from me, you can acquire from any agent. The only difference is that we apply everything to a problem statement. So, for example, we have something called income protection strategy. What's that? Well, if Christian depends on me 100%, and I
Hmm.
get cancer, I get a stroke, I get into a car crash, and not necessarily I pass away, but I'm 2 years recuperating, I cannot work.
Right.
This type of coverage would either replace your income or provide a lump sum for you to concentrate on recuperating and not concentrate on how you're going to pay the house, right?
Right.
Then we use life insurance to fund the special needs trust. A lot of people use real estate or use brokerage accounts or whatever but that for me fluctuates with the market. So I
Right.
just want to have something predictable. It's a simple life insurance. And then we have long-term care that's a different topic for parents because again, if you have a child that depends on you way beyond adulthood, for example, and you get sick and you need care, like an
Right.
assisted living facility, nursing home, this strategy would try to pay out for that care. So it's again it's to build a foundation. I don't do any investments. I don't do none of that. My main thing is just building that foundation for parents.
So you've created a resource where people who have a similar obstacle or similar challenge that you have
Yeah.
um, can find answers in a way that took you a lot of work. I'm very kind of similar to what this podcast is about. I believe that there are in every health topic, there's a similar overlay, and it doesn't matter whether, like we say, it's cancer or some, dementia, or it could be, any ailment or disease. The answers are generally found in a conversation of people that are going through the problem. Almost never, like you said, is there a silver bullet. You know, any any medical problem, there's teams of people that are working to solve it. There
Yeah.
are combinations of treatments and medicines and practices. There's never this one just we here go take the blue pill. I mean, they try to sell it to you that way. And like you said, in social media, just watching TV, listen to a commercial, they're like, here's the drug for you.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's some combination of diet and behaviors and food and activities, and maybe there's some medications involved, maybe there's some
Uh,
practices. It's all these
of
things.
course. Even having a supportive community can change your mood. It can change
Huge.
it if you have people next to you that you know that they're supportive, they make you laugh. Apparently, laughter is something that cures a lot of depression and all
Amazing.
that. So if you have a support, our circle has with time has gotten smaller, obviously because of but we know that our circle is a healthy circle.
All right.
And when you laugh with and you get connections, you have a supportive community. Believe me, that also like is a relief.
Oh no, 100%. I think just like the nuclear family, if you have that in order, you can weather
Yeah,
anything. And if you have a community behind you,
yeah,
it's powerful. It's just like, why do they have cheerleaders, right? And they actually help the team to do better. It's a real thing. And
yeah.
and whether it's, just one or two people that share something in common, or maybe it's a family member, it doesn't matter. It
But
doesn't,
yeah, but something that I do notice is that this happened to even to me. So
yeah,
to us. Man, you're responsible to develop that to create that circle, right?
right,
Because sometimes we as parents with special needs, we can fall in the victim mentality
right.
and oh, because of me and I'm alone. You know, um
Start making excuses.
yeah, and at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you need to be accountable. You need to take ownership, and you need to create that supportive environment you want, and that supportive environment you feel comfortable, and that supportive environment that you need to like stress test it, right? Like you
Right.
want to make sure who's there for the right reasons. You want to make sure who's there because they might need support from you instead of you only absorbing that support, right? So
Exactly.
it has to be the full. degree, right? In the same way I want to have a supportive community, most likely that same person, that the other person in front of you wants to have the same thing. So it has to be that type of mentality because if we're going into something expecting that we're the victims and everybody needs to cater to us, I don't know how much results you're going to get from it.
Well, and you're also dealing with a topic that is not fair. You're dealing
Yeah,
with a topic that affects everybody, and that has to do with finances.
yeah,
And the truth is, and it's an unfortunate truth, but it is a truth. We have to reckon with it. If you have a bunch of resources, or if you're living on the government dole, that affects the kind of care that you're going to be able to
oh
have.
yeah,
And so to be honest about that, I think a lot of times if you're in denial, maybe you're living beyond your means, maybe you're building up debt, maybe you're making it to where your future is going to be more difficult. And maybe if you're being honest
yeah,
and pragmatic, even if you don't always get to do everything you wish you could, you
yeah,
can prepare yourself in the best way. And by building community, by making good choices, by listening to people who've
yeah.
been through it, I think,
Even if uh, develop a skill set, right?
right?
Also, get time, develop a skill set. Everybody, I think, would benefit when they increase their income.
Sure.
So if like you mentioned, if you're depending everything on the government and you're depending on everybody, I know it's hard because it's hard for when you have a child that takes 20, 30, 40 hours of therapy a week.
Right.
And but it is what it is, and you need to find time to see what you want to do to get clarity. And that's something that I always start with that with families. Before even recommending anything, the first thing I do is have a call to understand if they have clarity. Because I have the clarity as soon as I talk to a family, I know,
Yeah.
but do they know, right? Do
Right.
they have clarity? And that's what I think everybody should seek, clarity, your current state from a financial point of view, from your mindset, from what do you want to do. If you're clear with that, believe me, you're going to know what's the next step.
100%. Well, Michael, we're running out of time, but I really feel that we have a lot more to discuss. When we talked last week, I was telling you about some of the work I'm doing with special
Yeah.
needs kids, working in the gardens, and it's not specifically focused on any one group. It's just,
Yeah.
anybody can participate. And I'm finding that dramatic results from people who walk into the garden and they have a certain look on their face. Maybe it's confused or unsure or reserved. And when they get into be able to do some hands-on activities, you see that light spark up in their eye. You see that
Um,
that look of wonder, that look of amazement as they discovered something, as they accomplished something. And I really believe that there's little little things that can be learned in the gardens can be
mhm.
applied to everybody's home life, work life, community life, and I really feel that we have a lot more to talk about. I would love to have you back on to get in and dig a little deeper into your work and letting people know. I think the most important element of this first conversation is to let people know that you're not alone. There are
Mhm.
people who are going through what you have been through and are working to resolve some of the
Yeah,
issues that you have, and this is one of these communities. So Michael, why don't you again let everybody know how to get a hold of you, where you tell us about your blog, your the address and all of that.
of course. So you can find me at www.autismvoyage.com. There you're going to see all the resources, all the blog posts, plus you're going to be able to sign to the newsletter. We send a weekly email to the family subscribe. That's very, very resourceful. It adds a lot of value. So yeah, so that's where you can find me. You can also book a call if you want to talk. But by all means, Joe, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. It is my pleasure. And thank you, Michael. I look forward to continuing this conversation. And I want to thank all the supporters. Remember, there's a subscriber opportunity to support the work we're doing, bringing health and building a community around health. Thank you, and we will talk to you next time.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.